partially what I want to do tonight is that I wanted to talk to you because like most people look at me and they're like, he's not blind, so right off the bat, let's address that. So 97% of us that qualify as blind, we actually can still see some things. And so that throws people off because in your head, you're thinking, my dog's going to grow up and it's going to be with this person. They're going to be completely blind. And that's just not the reality. When I graduated with Wheeland, we had 3 of the 12 of us were completely blind. And that was a really high number for the graduating class. And a lot of people don't know any blind people. Don't raise your hand to ask me a question. Please just start speaking, and I promise I will shut up and listen. And I'll let you, and ask me anything because, like we all have things we want to know. And today we were coming in the tram down from the eye hospital at OHSU. And a guy's like, can I ask you about your cane? And he's an employee. I was like, of course. And so I'm actually going to pass my cane around because like nobody ever gets to grab one. One thing that's a little bit different about mine is the tip is large, it spins, and it's a lot like bicycles. You have road bikes if you have really good roads, but you have mountain bikes if you're off-road. And where I live in Guatemala, our roads aren't perfect, and so I need a bigger tip to not end up getting jabbed in the stomach every day. It kind of rolls over stuff. The disadvantage is that because it rolls over stuff, it doesn't give me as precise a feedback, but when you walk with a cane, you walk with it centered and you're sweeping back and forth. When you hit stuff, it jabs you in the stomach, so you get this great ab workout. I mean, I'm not gonna show off my 6-pack, but it's impressive. So feel free to hold it, because I mean, I just want people to be comfortable being around blind people. And I want to say thank you for raising your puppies, because the work you're doing right now is really huge when we get the dogs, because it really does change our life. Currently, I don't have a dog because of where I live and what I do, but I've had a dog, I've had a cane, and it's like, having a pickup truck is great until you need to fit 6 people, and then the minivan's great. And so, you have to understand that sometimes, and like even when I had a dog, there are times that I didn't take my dog with me because it wasn't the best for the dog or it wasn't the best for me. And, we're a team and we had to always be thinking about what worked. And so there are times that even though I had my dog, I didn't take my dog to something, especially like professional things where I actually wanted to talk to people and, make professional connections. And I didn't want every conversation to be about my dog. I wanted people to actually remember my name. And if the dog's there, they don't. So that's for sure, like right off the bat. So I want to start by saying, does anybody have a question they just want to know the answer to? What took me to Guatemala was that I cannot see anything in the dark. And by living there, I have 12 hours of daylight all year round. And so my life is really predictable. Up here, the summers are great. I had lots of freedom, but then the winters come and it was really hard and frustrating. And then add in the glare from the lights and the wet pavement, and it made it really hard for me. And so my life was really shrinking. And that's one of the things that by Sherry being the puppy raiser, and then we connected, and she actually, and I've never actually said this to her, so she's about to hear something new finally out of my mouth. She actually pulled me out of my world that was getting pretty small, and she kept encouraging and inviting me to go do things, and so my world started to re-expand again. So that was a really amazing thing that she did beyond just raising Wheeling. Yeah. So.
What did you find to be the most helpful thing that you experienced with your dog?
Okay, so with a guide dog, you can move so much faster. Like I'm a tall guy, I'm 6 feet tall, and I walk fairly quickly. And with a dog, I can move 60% faster And so like I could just really get around town, get places. And that was wonderful because it cut down the amount of time I had spent just getting to the grocery store. Um, that for me was far and above, just the efficiency was incredible. Um, I also, my very first dog, I was living in Los Angeles when I had my first one, and finding cash machines back then was really hard. And so I worked with a guide dog school to train my dog to be able to find cash machines, and I could just tell my dog, find the money, and whoa. Now, if they would have taught my dog to put more money in the account, that would have been the next step, but I took what I could get. But on the flip side, I do like, there's just about reality, right? So a funny Los Angeles story with a guide dog. The guide dogs are trained to go around obstacles. They don't like lines. Like we queue up in a line and we're taught to be polite. The dogs don't do that. They're like, I can go this way and I can just get around. So one day we were in and out. I was waiting in line and it was summer in Los Angeles, so it's warm. And the woman in front of me was wearing a short skirt, and my dog just decided to give her a quick nose up the back of the skirt, and she turned around. I was like, wasn't me. I'm innocent here. But so there were some funny things that happened, and there was a man who got on the bus, and my dog kept sniffing his pockets, and he started to perspire a lot, and he quickly exited the bus, and I just never made eye contact. I'm like, it's not my drugs. So, they're just the experiences that are just so fun to have had. And so like these little things that you're taught. So it's like, having that dog sit and having them not, grab the food off the floor and all that you're doing right now is super helpful, because when we have the dogs, we really don't always see what they're doing. Like I was sitting on a bus, so literally my dog's head was here and the man's pocket was here. So I saw what was happening, but in live situations, I wouldn't have seen what my dog was doing. And so that need for them to really be on is so helpful to us. And this will sound silly, but if you think about how many times a day people ask you if they can pet your dog, we get that even more.
Really?
Yeah. And it's really helpful that you've already taught people that they at least have to ask. Because the other thing that we get is that people try to come in with a sneak pet because they're like, oh, he can't see it. So boom. But also movie stars would come up to me in LA because they assumed I couldn't see anything because I still had my sunglasses on because it was daytime. And they would come up and talk to me. So it was kind of funny. It was two worlds. It was like they were trying to do things because they knew they could be sneaky, but then the celebrities would come up to me and talk to me because they assumed I couldn't figure out who they were. It's like, okay. Yeah, I got to meet a lot of celebrities, and we would just sit there and have the most normal conversation. I think they were like, wow, that was like what normal people get to do. And they got to remember it. Yeah.
So I just asked Carl, we were out to dinner and I've never asked this question. How do you know to pick up the poop?
Okay.
I always wonder, like, how does the blind person know where's the poop?
Where's the poop? Okay, so the way you do it.
Like, why do we have to walk them in one spot?
Okay, so when you're totally blind, the way that you do it is, so we would be at the guide dog school, and we'd be out there on the pavement, and the dogs going in a circle, going in a circle. Finally, they stop. So what you as the blind person do is you just follow the leash back, and then you feel the dog's back. Depending whether it's a flat back or a bent back, whether they're peeing or pooping. And then because you've already walked back to the dog, your feet are right there. Depending on which way which end was the head and tail, where you should be grabbing. And it really is that simple. And so you just figure it out over time. And it is so much easier to pick it up off of the pavement than trying to figure it out in the grass and the weeds. Yeah.
How do you teach a dog to
I teach a dog a new route.
Like to get to the grocery store?
So we don't actually teach them how to find the grocery store. Um, in order to have a guide dog, you have to know how to use your cane. Like, so you've already learned how to cross streets and how to know when you should be able to go. And part of cane travel is orientation, and part of it's mobility. So the orientation is knowing which direction you're going, and that you've made 2 left turns, so now you're going this way. And then mobility is the part of being able to figure out how to clear curbs and find doorways and all of that. So what we're doing with the dog is we're actually, like, we're hitting a curb and we know we have to switch to the right, cross the street, go 2 more blocks, and head, find the doorway. But we aren't actually telling a dog to go to the grocery store. We're telling it what turns to make. And then the dog will find it from, they'll keep taking us around all the obstacles, and they'll get us to the door eventually. Yeah.
Have you ever had a dog stop you from doing something because it was a danger?
Yes. Wheelan was a great dog, but I have to be honest. Sherry knows this about Wheelan. So my very first dog was a Ferrari, like precise, perfect. We would walk through fields, and if the grass was blowing, that dog would stop because I was going to run into grass with my leg. Like, it was almost too much. And then Wheelan was more like, that was just a glancing blow, Keep walking, no big deal. You didn't really hit it that hard. So they had different personalities, but both of them stopped me at different times because of like a car coming at me or backing up, and when the dog just stops, that's one experience. But when they actually start walking backwards, then something's not right, because dogs just don't tend to walk backwards. And so every time that they not only just come to an abrupt stop, but especially when they walk backwards, I was like, okay, I don't know what's about to happen, but something's not right.
Were there ever things where you were like, because you're tall, like gonna hit your head?
Yeah. So one of the things about using a cane is that I am tall. That's why I wear a hat, partially to block the sun, and the other part is it gives me just a little bit of a heads up when I'm about to hit something with my head. But your cane doesn't look up, and the dogs are trained to look up. And so my dogs would stop if I was going to hit something with my head. And the taller you are, the harder it gets. But I was still in the range where, I would say they were like 95, 98% accurate. Every once in a while, I kind of ding my head, but compared to with a cane, it's completely different. Yeah. I can tell about this, or do you want to?
No, they've been passed around. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, so hopefully everybody has a sticker. And if you want to follow along on my adventures and travels, we try to make educational videos. My wife, Tamala, she is putting the videos together, but it takes a lot of time. I'm learning to do all that editing stuff. And so I just have to go walk around and say things and talk about things. And then she actually has to do all the hard work of putting it all together. And as the videos happen, then they'll get uploaded to all the different places. So you'll be able to follow along.
There's a blog.
What's that?
Oh,
Oh, there's a blog. So I had my right eye removed about 1.5 years ago. And so there's some stuff about eye removal and the process of getting a prosthetic eye. There's things about travel. There's things about the adaptive technology that I use and that other people use. Guide dogs, being a puppy raiser, there's information about that on there. And gosh, I'm trying to remember all the other stuff. But there will be more, because I know there's been a live video footage done recently. Guide dogs.
Karl, how old were you when you realized that your
vision wasn't like anyone else.
So that's a funny story. I only got a diagnosis of what my eye condition is in the last year. Yeah. Yeah, I'm 54. I got it when I was, yeah, I got the diagnosis when I was 53. And you know, I'd already had an eye removed when I finally got my diagnosis. And honestly, the diagnosis doesn't even explain it. So there's still something else there, but I knew the first memory I have, I would have been about 5 years old, and I was fishing with my dad and my brother, and I couldn't see the bobber in the water. And so they had to get me a bigger, different colored bobber that I could see. And so that was like the first time I remember it. But I always, growing up, I was always at the eye doctor getting thicker and thicker and thicker glasses. These don't reflect that because I've already had cornea transplants and I've already had cataract surgery, so they put all of the prescription into my eye instead of me having to wear it in front. If you ever see my reading glasses, then you would quickly figure it out, but they're quite thick. So yeah, from the time I was a kid, and now in retrospect, I used to drive, and this should frighten all of you. I never should have been allowed to drive, but the thing is, the doctors kept looking at my eyes and they're like, we don't see a horrible problem. And so they're like, yeah, you're telling us you can't see stuff, but we don't see any reason you can't drive. So I got a driver's license and I did drive, but it's been 25 years, so.
Wait a minute, when did you drive the Lamborghini?
With one exception, I did drive a Lamborghini, but I was all the way down in Wilsonville. So kept the.
It was an item at the guide dog's auction, winning driving a Lamborghini, and another man bid on it, gave it to Carl, and Carl showed up at the Lamborghini dealership with his guide dog.
I was like,
And got in the car, and we thought Carl's gonna drive the Lamborghini like from here to there,
And
in
then-
the parking lot,
yeah.
you know, across the parking lot, and they took off out of the parking lot, around wherever that Lamborghini dealership used to be off of I-5. And I said to the guy, "You're letting him drive?" And he goes, "Well, in the parking lot, he can wreck a lot of Lamborghinis. Out on the road, he can only wreck one." We thought Carl was just gonna sit go for a ride with the guy in the car, and the guy let him drive.
Yeah. No.
The dog was with me in the dealership, like, what the heck?
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things that happen when you have a guide dog, you know, like you meet famous people, you drive Lamborghinis. I mean, this is just normal, everyday stuff. You may not know this yet, but it's just the facts of life. I think one of the things that really isn't talked about is, okay, so you're gonna have this dog, and eventually it's going to go back to school, and of course yours will graduate, so don't worry, don't stress about that. And then you're going to go to graduation, although you should have bought stocking Kleenex the night before, because you're gonna cry your eyes out. I haven't made it through a graduation without just absolutely being a blubbering mess. But then, you know, this dog goes, and when your dog goes with the blind person, it doesn't just work, okay? It's going to work, and it's gonna love working. I mean, retire a dog a little bit early, you'll know. Sherry got my dog when he retired the first time. He retired a little bit early because I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail, and he wasn't going to be able to do the mileage that I was doing. But he wasn't really ready to retire yet either, and he was a bit of a.
He was a little naughty.
He was a little bit naughty because he didn't like early retirement.
So I gave him back. And then Carl had him for another year, and
Yeah.
then he retired.
And then, yeah, they retired. So, but your dog, I promise you, the home that your dog goes to, they are going to play with your dog. The dog is going to have fun. It's going to actually have like kind of the best of both worlds because it'll have that, you know, go to work and then chill out in the evening and play, and you know, like the dog really does get to be a dog, and they almost like it more when they do work, because they're like, oh, I'm getting that reward, I'm getting that treat, and this is my playtime. And every dog has their own version of what they like to do. Wheeling, you could play tug of war with that dog for hours, and you know, if you did that, it was his favorite thing in the world. So I do want you to know that, trust me, these dogs are going to have fun, and they go on these weird random adventures, and yeah, it's a really great experience. And I think if you do make a little bit of an attempt to stay in touch with the person who gets your dog, of course it depends. They may be like, you know, no. But I think it can be a really cool bond that you may know this person. I mean, Sherry's been stuck with me now for 21 years.
I talked to Patricia this week who got Sapporo,
Uh-huh.
and she said, I don't usually keep in touch with people this much. But she was reaching out to me, and I'm like, well, too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad. But it's been interesting watching her with Sapporo, because they're just kind of getting used to each other, right?
Yeah.
And seeing the things she's starting on Instagram and what are they doing. And I think it's interesting to learn that they just don't right away. It takes a while, right, to kind of learn each other
Yeah.
and what they do.
Yeah. And when I switched from one dog to the other, I honestly truly thought it was going to be like, you know, just giving the next set of keys, like, you know, every vehicle's kind of the same. No, it's more like that used car that has a few extra quirks that, you know, you gotta hit that window down lever 3 times and then hold it and then the window works. Like, there was a lot more subtle that if you were just watching, you would think, oh, they're the same. But as a user actually having the experience, they do these unique little movements that you start to understand, but each dog was a little bit different. And just even like dropping their head a little bit, it was like, okay, with one of my dogs, it meant actually duck. The other one, it meant there's something smelly on the ground that's probably interesting. I'm not gonna get all the way there, but I'm gonna get there a little bit. And it was like, hang on, I'm not ducking. Yeah, okay, got it, yeah. You're just doing that thing. But it really was an interesting relearning of all the little subtle movements that they make and how they each wanted to be praised, because both of the dogs were completely different. One of them, his tail never wagged, ever. People that were dog people are like, I don't like your dog. And I'm like, he's awesome. But he would never wag his tail, and he didn't show affection until he sat down, and he would just slide his paw out, and his paw would always be touching my foot. Didn't matter, you know, how we were configured, he would just slide that paw. And if you didn't know, you wouldn't realize that that was his like little love touch, and he always wanted to be touching me, but it was subtle. And then Wheelan was much more affectionate, you know, like wanting to basically, you know, like, we're done with work, Dad, climb up in my lap, and, you know, like, let's go play tug.
Carl, like before you go to guide dog school, I
Mhm.
don't know if it's different now, like what are the things they ask you about, like how do they match you up with a dog?
Oh, right. So you guys don't even know all, and it's so funny. I know the other side of the experience. So wow. Okay, thank you. So they actually come out to our house and meet with us. We've already sent in an application. We've told them all about ourselves, what we like to do, how far we walk, the type of environment we're in. And if they accept us, then they actually come out to our house and they make us go walk to places we go, like to our grocery store. And they actually are watching to see that we have the proficient skills with a cane, that if our dog is sick, we can still get to the store with our cane. Because some people kind of try to skip using their cane and just get to the dog, but you have to know how to do it. So they come out, they walk around, they see how fast we walk, they kind of get to know our personality, our temperament, and then from there, you get your date of when you're coming to school, and then you get flown to whichever campus you're going to be at, and then you go to school, you get your dog, and when you go to school to get your dog, what you don't know is they have probably 4 or 5 that they've already picked out that are ready to go. And you show up and they're like, okay, we've got dog number 1, and here you go. But if there's something that doesn't work, and you're saying, this dog and I, we're just not a match, then out comes dog number 2, and all of a sudden, bam, you have a new dog. So we actually can end up switching while we're even at school. But at a certain point in school, if you're having issues, they tell you, if you want to change, today is your last day, because we have to make sure that you can pass all these tests with your new dog, and you only have this many days. So, you know, like, there does become a point where it's like you have to decide, can you put up with this one behavior that you don't like of your dog, or whatever you're feeling, or not? And so that's how we eventually get our dog.
When you're encountering people in the public and someone really insists on wanting to pet or draw contact with your dog, what words, what phrase, what do you recommend people say or how to say?
Yeah, the thing that I would usually get is, I just can't stop myself. If I see a dog, I have to pet it. So I would usually say, you know, I love that you're such a dog lover, but right now we can't. And I usually just start moving. Because I'm like, there's nowhere this conversation is going to go that this person isn't going to make this about them. And so I just get out of there. Because, or if it may be like, you know, we're stuck in a line, we're going to be here for the next hour, it's like, you know what, let me get my dog to sit and go ahead and pet it. And that's fine. But usually if I can kind of get out of it, I will. Just because it's all about them, and I'm going to be stuck there listening to their story for an hour. I was already a therapist, and they're not paying me, so see, that doesn't work. Yeah.
Can you tell us more about hiking the Appalachian Trail?
I can. 3 concussions. I fell every day. My first time I ended up getting Lyme's disease, so I didn't finish it. That's why I actually came back, got wheeling back. And then the very next year I went back, started over, was able to do the whole thing. It's a really fantastic, amazing experience. And the thing that's so amazing is the people. And, you know, there's so many miles. Like, it's weird that I can look at pictures and video of that trail, and I know where it is. But the biggest thing was the people. And you form these friendships that you have for lifetimes. And I'm still in touch with most of the people I hiked with. That, you know, we were in proximity to each other. They always say, you know, 100 people in front of you, 100 people behind you. And you just keep moving back and forth between that group, because somebody twists an ankle, or they're waiting for their new shoes that were supposed to be here on Monday, but they aren't getting here until Tuesday. So they fall a day behind. Somebody stays in town an extra day, so then you move a day ahead of them. But you're always moving back and forth between the same group of people. And so everybody looks out for each other. They, you know, it's a pretty cool experience. But it's all about the people, in my personal opinion. And anybody could do it. If you wanted to do it, anybody could do it. Because it sounds like a lot of miles when you start thinking about going that far. But in reality, you have all day, every single day. And what else are you going to do other than walk? Like, you can only sit around camp in front of a campfire for so long. You honestly truly are like, yeah, I better walk. And so, you know, you just get up every morning. The hardest part, to be honest, because normally everybody's like, the walking's the hard part. The walking's not the hard part. Even for me, falling all the time, hitting my head and all that, the hardest part is actually the mental piece of the boredom. Because you get up every single day and you have this routine and you pack your backpack in exactly the same way, and you load your pockets with your food, and your food goes in the same pockets. You've got your water system all figured out. You've got your however much water, and you know where your next water is, and you go and you filter that water, and you're eating your snacks, and you're walking, and you're stopping for your lunch, and then you're walking, and you're getting more water, and then you're walking, and then you set up your tent, and everything comes out of your backpack in the exact same order, and you set it all up in the exact same order, and you do this every single day. And it's mind-numbing, and that's why most people leave the trail. They won't say that, but it's Groundhog Day. And especially on the Appalachian Trail, where you're just in this green tunnel, and you don't really actually see that much for a lot of the trail. You see the trail and trees and this canopy, and it's not like there are these spectacular views every day. Even though you're going over every mountain that exists and through every valley, you're never getting above tree line. And so the hardest part is being able to do it day after day after day when nothing will change. I finished it really fast. It took me 3.5 months.
Okay, wait, but so, since, what trail did you do that was better than that?
PCT.
What about, you've done the PCT?
I've been on the PCT, and I got a lung infection, but I did enough of it that, trust me, the PCT is so much different. There's better views and all of that. I've done the Camino de Santiago over in France and Spain, Tahoe Rim Trail, Florida Trail, done a lot of hiking. And the Appalachian Trail is probably one of the hardest. It actually has more elevation gain and loss in fewer miles than the PCT. So you either get to climb Mount Everest 26 times from sea level on the Appalachian Trail, or you get to do it like 22 times on the PCT. But you get an extra 400 miles on the PCT to do it on. So yeah, it's a lot of steep climbing, steep descents.
Did you do the Appalachian Trail with a guide dog?
No, but I was very, very fortunate when I got to Munson, Maine. I met the first blind person that had ever hiked the Appalachian Trail, and he did it with his guide dog, and I think his guide dog's name was Pilot, and he happened to be speaking that evening at the community center, and so I went and met him, and he since has passed away. And so it was pretty cool to actually get to meet him, and we took some pictures together, and had some good chats. So it was special. Like for whatever reason, I was in the right place that day.
What do you wish people would ask you if you need help, or if someone comes up and wants to help you, how can they help you without being obnoxious about it?
You know what? So when I was younger, this was a very hard question for me. The older I get, the easier it is. And what I really appreciate is when somebody walks up to me and it's like, hi, I'm Sharon, and it looks like you're looking for something, or, I noticed you have a cane. I live here. Is there anything I can help you find? Or, like whatever fits for the situation you're in. But if you identify who you are, like when people come up to you and they're like, do you need help? And it's like, okay, now I either have to trust you, and I don't know who you are. As soon as you tell me a name, like it may be a fake name, but if somebody's willing to walk up to you and tell you their name, they tend to go up on my level of trustworthiness. And then if they say something like, I live around here, is there anything I can help you find? Or, whatever, then like I'm more comfortable and I will answer. And I'm a big guy. So when I think about, like some of the people are smaller than me, women, older, like making them comfortable right off the bat, I think you'll hear a lot more people say, yes, I'm actually really trying to find where's the bus stop. So.
Is it even helpful if it's someone you know, like like, I don't know, that, do you recognize, like, maybe not me, because you know me, but like if Nancy said, hey, Carl, it's Nancy, like, that way you know
It's
it's me.
always helpful
I
because,
think we just assume, you know, I walk over to you that you know it's me.
right, it's always helpful for me if people tell me who they are. Unless, like, there's only 4 of us, and once I know who's come in the room, there's only 4 of us, I got it. But especially if people are coming and going, like, if we were at maybe a conference and we're together in one meeting room, and then, we're out doing a break, and somebody comes walk up to me, it's like, which one are you? Like, life doesn't come with audio description. Netflix does, but real life doesn't.
Well, because I can remember a couple times being places where, like, a waitress, they're all wearing black.
Yeah.
And you're like, is that the same waitress that came over here before, right? It's like, is that the same lady? Like, no, that's a different lady, but you don't know the difference because they all wear the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. For me, it's just, I think for anybody that's low vision, blind, legally blind, whichever category they're in, if you identify who you are, it makes everything so much easier. Because if you don't, I'm going to stand there and I'm going to have a conversation with you, and I'm going to the whole time be trying to figure out from what you're saying, and I'm going to be saying and asking little subtle things, just trying to figure out who the heck you are, because it's like, it seems like you know me, now I have to figure out which one of the people in the world that I know you are. And so, yeah, it's always super helpful. And then if you're around somebody that's blind, legally blind, whatever, and you're leaving, tell them. Otherwise, we start having these amazing conversations, and it's really weird and awkward because then there's no response. So just tap them on the shoulder. Hey, gotta go to the bathroom. Be right back. Otherwise, really, we do start talking to people that aren't there. I want to tell you guys about something very interesting that's happening. And to me, this isn't bad, but it's unique. So as my vision keeps decreasing, there are new experiences I have. And the current one that is a little unusual, for any of you that were alive in the 60s, you'll relate to this real soon. So I have a best friend in Guatemala who's American, who he has the same build, he's the same hair color, and all that as one of my brothers. And when we hang out and it's low light, I actually watch his face flip and become my brother's face. And his mouth moves correctly for the words. But I'm sitting in front of my best friend who has the face of my brother. And if the light gets brighter, it'll flip back to my best friend. And if the light dims, the face will flip again. And I can sit there and just watch the face keep popping between 2 different people. So absolutely tripping. But the whole reason it's happening is it's because our visual cortex finds faces really exciting, and my brain is now to the point where I can see enough to figure things out, but it's bored, and so it's putting more exciting things in. So my brother's face, when it pops on my friend, is actually perfectly in focus, which is one of the ways I know it's not real, other than the fact that he's in the wrong country. But it's fascinating. And then we also have a bathroom in our house that has bricks on the right-hand wall. This eye's fake, it sees nothing. And when I walk into that bathroom, all of a sudden I can see the bricks on the wall that I can't see. I can't see my hands here. And I can see the bricks are there. But once again, my brain is putting it there because a geometric pattern is fairly interesting for your visual cortex. And so my brain is trying to essentially play and have fun and keep itself entertained. And it's part of the whole losing your vision thing that a lot of people don't know about. Has a name, Charles Bonnet syndrome. But you only get it for a very short period of time while you're in this magic window of you had vision, you're losing it, but it's not low enough yet. And sometimes the things you see can stick. Like there's this one famous case of this woman. She was standing at her kitchen sink doing her dishes, and she does not have birch trees in her yard, but she looked out her window and she saw birch trees. And those birch trees stayed with her wherever she moved her head for the next 6 years. Mine so far always, are situational and disappear as soon as I'm out of that situation or the lighting changes. But, so she has had birch trees in her field of view for 6 years. Which would drive me insane, but, or I'd learn to love birch trees, I guess. Something would have to change. But there's no real, manual for you're losing your eyesight. But one of the things I'll tell you is that a lot of times people lump blind people and deaf people in the same group because they're like, oh, you've lost a sense. Deaf people get together. That's true. Deaf people get together because they share a language. Blind people, oh, you share a language. You have Braille. Yeah, we don't sit around reading Braille as a group together. So actually, blind people don't hang out with other blind people because you need somebody who can see to figure it out or to drive and to do all those things. So it actually is a very interesting disability because we tend to be very, very separated from one another because there's no advantage to us, for the most part, hanging out together. My first experience actually being around blind people was going to guide dogs school and living with other blind people. And then I learned all these tips and tricks, and it was actually really super helpful. And so it was a really great experience for me on so many different levels because I made blind friends, I learned other resources, I learned how to do things, and all of a sudden I started to see, oh, my experience isn't really that unique. It's normal in the blind world. But we don't hang out with other blind people as kind of a rule of thumb. It's not that we don't like each other, it's just, somebody has to figure out how to use that remote on the TV. So, yeah. So yes, when I dream, it's in focus. And it's real, it's totally in focus. Yeah, it looks much better than the real world to me.
And what about just when you shut your eyes?
When I shut my eyes, I could even just do one. I just got my eye polished today, by the way, if you're noticing a beautiful glimmer and glint. When I shut my eyes, I don't know, for me it's just gray. But prosthetic eyes, it isn't round. If anybody thinks that it looks like a marble, if I popped it out, which I could totally do, I won't do it. But it's not round. It's actually kind of shaped like a shell or like a big contact lens. It's just, the only reason it's staying in is because it's behind my eyelids. And the only reason it's moving is because when they took my eye out, they put a ball into that socket that had holes already pre-drilled, and they attached each of the muscles that way, and then they closed the skin in front of it. And the front of that ball has like a nub. And then, how you've gone to the dentist and they make the mold of your teeth? So they actually have this spider webby thing that they put in your eye with this injector. You can watch it. There's a video on the blog. And they put the goo in your eye socket, and that's how they make the mold to make the eye. And so my prosthetic has on the back of it the receiver for the nub, but they don't connect. There's skin in between them. And so if I move my eye really fast, this one actually lags behind because I'll move it faster and then it'll recenter. So if anybody wants to see that later, I'll totally do party tricks for you. But it's kind of one of the ways you can tell that somebody really does have a prosthetic eye is if they move their eye fast, the prosthetic will lag. But otherwise, it moves really good. And then just every 6 months, I go to the prosthetic shop down in Lake Oswego that made it, and they take it out and they polish it up for me and slap it back in and send me on my way. Yes. That, and I got myself onto a schedule of follow-up visits, and finally we get to break the winter. I don't have to do winter anymore. I get to do October now, which is perfect. But yes, that's exactly why I'm here. I go to the eye hospital every day for different appointments, and I finish up, tomorrow's my last day of appointments. I've been here since December 29th. So there's actually that many amazing specialists up there. And if you ever know somebody that needs eye care, I'm not saying your local optometrists and ophthalmologists aren't good. If somebody starts having something that's weird, get them to an eye hospital. It's such a different level of care. They have and they know of things that are just unbelievable. Like, I was the first person that they did a particular type of cornea transplant, and they did it because they knew my body would scar. And so they actually had to do a very specialized surgery to get a new cornea attached without scarring. And so they were able to do it. Yep. Yeah, it's a great, amazing facility. Nancy, how are we doing on time? I want to make sure that.
Got another 15 minutes. So,
I can talk, but I want to make sure I respect.
does anybody else have questions?
Yeah.
When I saw you, what about?
Yes.
My time in Central America is always hands on the street.
So that's why I don't have a guide dog, and I only use my cane and my wife. Because, yeah, where we are with all the street dogs, it wouldn't be fair to the dog. And a lot of the streets in the village, town that I live in, they're not wide enough that, you know, to fit a dog, me, and a motorcycle is trying to pass, we're not going to fit. And so when I knew I was going to do, I knew Wheelan was supposedly ready to retire. He didn't quite understand that as well as I thought he did, but I knew I wanted to do some things in the interim between dogs. So I wanted to do some long distance hiking. I wanted to do some international travel. I was down in South America, I was in Asia, and I was in Europe. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get these things done, you know, before I get my next dog. And then I ended up just staying in Guatemala for 11 years. So, you know, it happens. But we don't know where we'll be next. And we may be somewhere that having a dog is a good fit again. But I'm not going to have a dog if it's not a good fit. It's not fair to the dog. And also, you know, I have to live somewhere that the laws and the culture respects service animals. And where I live in Guatemala, they're just not there yet. So.
Curious about the countries where you've been internationally that were the best, or at a level that maybe we are in the States, maybe they're even better about people with guide dogs.
Europe is amazing. Like, they have their public transit so well marked. Everything's brailled up. They see me usually walking in, you know, to like train stations, bus stations with my cane, and usually some of the personnel come over and they ask me if I need help. I actually find Europe to be even easier than the US. Like, I don't know, they just come up to me more often. In the US, they'll kind of just let me do my own thing. until they figure out that I really am lost, and then they'll come over to me. But Europe's the easiest. Central and South America, there are some things. So when I walk into a bank with a cane, I get taken to the front of the line. There is a neat thing. They don't necessarily understand it completely in Central and South America, but they always make sure that the elderly and people with disabilities just get taken to the front of the line, and it's just your turn. So that's kind of nice. In Asia, I was routinely escorted across the street by somebody. They would just, and let me tell you, when the cars are coming from the opposite side that they should be driving on, I mean, come on, cars are on the, they drive, it should be simple, but some of those countries, they like to reverse it. And I would walk up to a curb, I'd be getting ready, I'm listening to traffic flow. Somebody would walk up to me in just amazing English and say, "Are you trying to cross the street?" And I'd say, "Yes." And they'd be like, "Let me take you." And away it would go. And then I'd get to the other side and they would say, "Do you know where you're trying to go to next?" And "Yes, I'm trying to go here. It's just to my right." "You're correct. Would you like me to walk you there?" "No, I got it." "Okay, have a great day." Boom. And they were gone. But it happened so often, it was almost unbelievable that everybody kept addressing me in English. And I was like, my Thai's not that bad.
Karl, you were just talking about hearing the traffic. Have you noticed any changes like walking since like so many electric cars?
So yeah, I've been gone out of the US for most of the electric cars, to be honest, the big boom in the last 10, 11 years. And so I'm still getting used to the new sounds that they're all making, because I just haven't been around them that much. All of ours are still tuk-tuks, motorcycles, and regular cars. But yeah, I do remember when they first came out though, they were harder, but now they all seem to be making a sound, which is easier. But I'm just still trying to learn what all the sounds are, because a couple of the brands I think make different sounds. It seems to me. Yeah.
Glasses that someone can wear that even if you can't see at all, that they would be able to, look out ahead and do a lot of the work that a guide dog might be able to do, and then tell you in your ear, like, we're going to stop here, or in 10 feet, or whatever, or even vibrate when you need to stop, or like, that they can control you, not control you, but, give you messages to help you stay safe. And with reduce the need for a guide dog. So I'm kind of wondering if you have any thoughts for the future of guide dogs as technology continues along.
So I just talked to a Meta employee 2 days ago, because I was playing around with some of the Meta glasses. And unfortunately, the newest Meta glasses only have a display on the right. And I'm like, that's of absolutely no use to me. But luckily the employee was like, I'm writing back to the people that, make all this stuff. And I'm gonna tell them, we need one that can go in the left or both, and he really listened. Like, he's like, hang on, so what would you do with these? And so we were talking about that, and we were talking about what they can do. And I don't know if any of you know about the application on your smartphone that you could download, and it's called Be My Eyes. So if you don't know about it, and you have any desire at all to be an awesome person, download the app Be My Eyes, and you're going to be the person who can see. So I have it as the blind person. My wife Tamla has it as a sighted person. And I can just pull out my phone and I can, just tap Be My Eyes, and it will call somebody. And whoever picks up first gets a phone call. And I can't see you, so don't worry if you're naked or whatever. We don't see your camera. You're seeing our camera. And I could be standing here saying, is this the CBS? Are both of these socks blue? Is my oven really on 350? Okay? And it's really, they you say you get 3 calls a year?
It's going up now more, but someone else answers sometimes by the time
Yeah, you
I get my phone out of my pocket.
You have to be quick to actually get the calls. It's kind of a badge of honor. Oh, I got one. Because there's so many volunteers, and it's really awesome. And if you speak more than one language, you can put in which languages you speak. Because, you know, if you happen to speak Spanish, you may get a Spanish-speaking call, or if you speak French, or whatever it is that you speak, you can put that in and say, yeah, I'm willing to do English and Spanish, or, you know, I happen to speak Russian, or whatever it is. And it's pretty interesting. One of the phone calls that Tamala got, who was a blind woman who was in San Francisco. We were in Guatemala. She got the phone call, and ironically, my brother, who I see his face when I'm talking to my best friend, lives in San Francisco. And so I know the city really well. And so she's asking Tamala the question, and I'm like, hang on, let me see which intersection you're at. So I was actually looking at her phone, helping the other blind woman. And so it was the funniest call ever. It's like, we're in the wrong country, and the blind guy is going to actually answer his question for you. And here we go. But Be My Eyes is a really, really awesome app, and I promise you will not receive a whole bunch of phone calls in a year. And it usually tends to be pretty simple, really quick, just boom, boom, boom. Yep, you're on 350, turn the dial a little more to the left, a little more to the right, you're good to go. You know, like, that will be a normal call. So if you want to do something cool, add one more app on your phone.
Where do you find that app?
iPhone or Android. Just in the App Store. I know in the Android store it's the Play Store, and then for Apple it's, what do you call it? The App Store. There you go. Someday I'll learn how to use an Apple. Yeah. Yes. So the things that I use most often, like my first like go-to thing, because I've always got my phone in my pocket, is I actually use a magnifier. So we were out at a restaurant tonight, and I didn't even have to pull out my reading glasses because I just pulled out my phone, I hit that app, and I shot it up to +4, and I was reading the menu myself. I've got other apps. I put all my low vision apps together in a folder. I have one where it would have read it to me out loud. So sometimes the font, I can't figure it out because the background colors and stuff don't work for me. And so then I can just have it read it to me. I'll use a screen reader when I'm watching like Netflix or things like that. I turn on the audio description so I understand who's coming in and out of the scenes, and you know that somebody looked at them smugly or whatever it is, that extra information that helps you understand the movie. I'll use Braille if I need to. I haven't had to read Braille in a long time, so my Braille is slow, but I can still figure out all the signs and the elevators and all the basic stuff. Let's see, what else do I use? Yeah, yeah. Instead of texting, most of my friends, we just leave each other voice notes. It's not as popular in the U.S., but when you're outside the U.S., WhatsApp is like the international. So no matter what country I'm in, we just exchange numbers on WhatsApp, and everybody just leaves voice messages.
Audiobook.
What?
Audiobook.
Oh yeah, audiobooks. So I finished 75 books this year as audiobooks. Blind people tend to listen to everything on like a really, really fast speed. So that may sound impressive, but when you realize that I was doing it almost double the normal listening speed, it's not as impressive. So, I mean, you could basically cut it in half, but I did finish 75. But audiobooks, you know, just from the library through Libby, which is awesome because audiobooks are really expensive, and you can have them for free from your library. Come right to my phone, even when I'm out of the country.
any diagnostic you?
Awesome question. So I do have it on my medical bracelet that tells them I'm blind. My neighbor's apartment caught on fire when I had Wheeland. And the fire department was awesome. Like, it's really funny. I have not thought of how that would have worked, but yeah, it actually happened to me. And yeah, the fire department, they were great. They were like, you know, they made sure that I understood where I had to stand, and they checked in on me, and they were great. So my only experience so far in my life was really positive. Like, they saw me, they came in and checked on me, they moved me, told me to stay, I stayed, and you know, they would just come and check on me. Do I need anything? You know, do I need a blanket? Am I cold? And then when everything was all done, they were like, okay, you can go back in now. And they're like, we've got all the hoses out of the way, head back home. So I mean, I've been into a lot of hospitals, and hospitals are great. They, you know, they understand that I'm blind, and with my dog, they're just like, okay, you're here together. And so I guess all my like, I haven't ever had to deal with the police with a dog, but I don't know. So I don't know how the police would be. I hope to never know.
Did you ever go somewhere where they wouldn't let the dog go? Like, you had to argue with them?
I did have a couple restaurants and a couple taxis that refused. And you know, for the most part, once they had said they refused, I was like, well, then I don't want to be here anyway. Like, I don't want to give you my money. And so I could have stood there and argued and explained the rules and all that, but I was like, you know what? You're not ruining my evening. I'm just going to choose to give my money to somebody else. But, you know, other people will stand there and argue with them. I just tend to feel like they're not the people I want to give my money to, and that's just how I am. I'm going to vote with my dollars.
Any more questions? I think that was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all.